What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV, and today I'm talking about IHE. I think that's how you say it. The 2019 Chinese animated film. So what has drawn me to this film? Over the past few months, the sequel to this movie, I guess IHE 2, has been notable as a global phenomenon as far as box office is concerned. It is by far the leading #1 at the moment, almost doubling even the Goliath that is Lilo and Stitch, that masterpiece. And I saw A24 is releasing the version of it in the UK with some kind of dub, and I can't really start with this one. So let's get the context with the original, which was an enormous success in its own right. For an animated film in 2019, $20 million is extremely, if this is accurate, modest, and this gross is absurd compared to it. Just for reference, this was the same year of Toy Story 4's release, which was put together for $200 million, so literally for a tenth of its budget and nearly making the same, not far off. As far as 2019 animated films are concerned, I was refreshing myself on that year and was kind of shocked by how appalling of a year it was for animated films. Like, I guess the Lego Movie 2 was fine. I remember very little about it. It was nothing on that first movie. The insult that is The Lion King 2019, Spies in Disguise, and Nothing movie, Playmobil the movie, atrocious. I haven't seen Away, but it was kind of proto-Flow from what I understand, so that's probably good. Abominable, Nothing, no one ever talks about that. Oh my god, Detective Pikachu, Angry Birds, Secret Life of Pets. Like, this is rough. This is this is not good. I did not like Toy Story 4. Missing Link was weak, despite the cool animation. Queen's Corgi. This is like legendarily bad stuff right here. Frozen 2 was terrible. How to Train Your Dragon was okay, but still probably the weakest of that trilogy. But the point is, I guess I wasn't really expecting this to be one of the better animated movies of that year. I think it has a bunch of problems, but it also surprised me in ways I was not anticipating. I will be spoiling a bunch of stuff, so if you're intrigued by this, go watch it first. I got some screenshots so I can kind of talk through this. So I think Chinese mythology is endlessly fascinating, and I put my hands up and say it's probably the worldwide mythology I know least about, or at least I know the basics of Journey to the West and that kind of stuff, but nothing about these characters or what they're pulling from with this. And these undying myths are kind of the ultimate stories, so I want to see what other cultures can bring to the table, what stories they can tell, what's familiar, what is new. And honestly, the first 15 minutes I was thinking, oh, I might hate this. This, like, is manic. The humor's not connecting with me. I did have to watch the dubbed version, which is not ideal. I would always prefer to watch it in its original audio, not only because the animation matches the performances, but so often when English actors are trying to translate, but so often when the dialogue is translated, there is just something lost in translation. I'd much prefer just to read subs. So bear that in mind when it comes to my overall review. I started with a screenshot of this character because I did not vibe with this guy. I just didn't like looking at him. He was unpleasant. He was, in the version I watched, voiced by Eggman, or as more people know, Dr. Crumb from What's Up. That was just so distracting to me, just hearing Eggman voice this guy for the whole movie. I wish I had the other version of the audio, but otherwise, there were a bunch of character designs I did quite enjoy. This was quite a unique one here. I like the hyper-stylized nature of some of these characters, some good color. It varied as far as like the backgrounds, as far as detail and scope, but to loop back around to that $20 million budget, I think is actually pretty exceptional with that in consideration. So yeah, when the film was kind of getting going and it was all about these guys, these gods, wasn't really digging it. The way they were animating, like the fat on this guy and the pig was just really off-putting and weird. There were whole scenes with him like drinking booze and it just seemed like I was missing something. So as the story gets going, you're introduced to this pregnant woman who winds up being the mother, and this is the father of IHE. This was one of the better gags, where she was like always eating because she was pregnant and didn't want any help from anybody. That was one of the better gags. The jokes are one of my biggest problems with this movie. It was like all over the place as far as if it would be funny or just kind of juvenile to a degree that is just kind of gross. I'll have some screenshots later on showing what I mean. Like, don't get me wrong, like juvenile humor can be really charming and funny. I'm thinking like an Adventure Time type tone, but it needs cleverness with it as well. It started winning me over when it was introducing these dragon characters. The villains are often one of my favorite parts. You can see some good lighting here, some good color choices. The first like half an hour is super exposition MacGuffin front-loaded. They're constantly talking about the spirit pearl and the demon pill. Maybe these are things you might already know if you know this mythology better than me, but I was finding it quite confusing, or just not confusing, just more like a bit much for how simplistic and familiar of a narrative this is, as far as like good and evil, defining your own destiny, going against what people are attributing to you. You know, these kinds of things that are in a lot of kids' movies and a lot of myth. Yeah, the weirder it got, the more it would win me over, like this weird, like, cloud guy. I didn't really like the English performance, but I like the look of it, the way it moved was weird and freaky. Reminds me of some of the stuff that I loved about the Greek and Norse myths I was obsessed with growing up. Once it gets out of that first act and things are established, there's some dibbies there. Corny, lame. But yeah, once it gets out of that first act and could calm down that mania a little bit and actually established its main character, this was an interesting screenshot. A lot of like lowbrow humor. There's a really bad joke that they just thought was awesome that I updated my note every time they reused it, where it's like the big burly man who has the voice of a woman. And it's like, wow, funny, man. And they just kept returning to it again and again, thinking it was so funny. It's such a lame gag. Yep, that is what you think it is. It was kind of funny, I guess, contrasting the cultural differences. Like, I just don't think you'd see this in like a big Pixar tier film. But this was one of the funniest scenes. This is the main character here, young Naja. Very kind of Bart Simpson coded. Hang on, I'm getting a phone call.
Indeed, human resources. I would like to discuss a job with you, please.
Cool. Yeah, kind of a fun character design. Has that Bart Simpson energy. A trickster born of the demon pill, if that's what we're talking about. This was kind of a funny set piece, but nothing too original as far as these like bully dynamics and that kind of thing. I like the way they animated him walking around with his hands in his pockets. That was a funny detail. Yeah, here's another example of stuff that started winning me over more. There's a whole, Dark Souls painted world location, which I thought was creative and cool. And when they would establish something like this, a setting like this, with these rules, with this magic paintbrush and stuff like that, it would reincorporate itself. They'd revisit environments, and it just didn't feel random or throwaway, which I appreciate. As I say, it did tend to get better as it was going along. Another thing I wasn't expecting were these genuinely cool fight scenes to just break out. Part of the fun of having these god-type characters and this master-apprentice training stuff, like, you can have some cool action. And there is plenty of it in this, I would argue, slightly too long runtime for what this is. Ugly troll scene was weird. I was surprised when he, like, vores a little girl. Like, they don't directly show it. This is the only shot they show, and then it kind of cuts to him with her already swallowed. Again, kind of an ugly design, but the hook of this scene is these weird bubbles that if you touch, then you turn to stone. So it gave it kind of a fun angle for an action scene. That's a funny frame. And yeah, as is the punchline, a lot of the times in this movie, a gross out thing happens. You get some nice shots there, a nice character moment on the beach where falling into that trope of the hero and the villain, unlikely friends, don't know the truth about each other quite yet. Give them a bit of tension to their conflict. Here's another interesting fight scene. It kept going out of the bounds of being cool to me and just being stupid, especially with how they would integrate Pig Guy. Like, it was the same gag every single time. He would come into an action scene, something slapstick would happen, or he'd fart or whatever, and that would kind of ruin the flow for me. Whereas I did consistently like this main character. Outside of the pig dude, most main characters have a good, like, detailed character design to them. A lot of the basic background stuff is pretty rough. Like, the gag of this scene is that they're supposed to look like their eyes aren't smiling, but their mouths are. That's like the joke. That was an okay joke. I more screenshot this just to show off some of the background characters, how all over the place they are. Some are fun, some are just like, what is going on here? Yeah, this guy, I don't know what they needed to do with this. Because this is like an archetype of character that I normally enjoy. Like the teacher or the wise sage type dude, but the humor with him just did not work. This did work though, like this version of Naja, where he's got these like fire wheels, which is how he'd fly around. It was genuinely like cool stuff. Some really good action, some great like particle effects. It seemed like they were saving their budget for the last 30 minutes or so when it just goes absolutely nuts. This was a funny screenshot. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't even know what you'd imagine is going on here. Nothing too crazy. Fire versus ice. Oh yes. Then they return to the painted world for a really cool set piece. I like that they go back there, reincorporate some of the stuff they'd set up. I really hope it's in the sequel too in some form, or something as weird and different as this. And so they do this huge set piece, like flexing the animation, flexing the action stuff. It's like, wow, this is cool. Then they all get stuck in this ice ball together, and They win the day through farts. Yep, everyone's favorite character, the pig dude, he does a fart. Well, not just one, he does like 2 or 3 farts. It makes this guy like pass out and throw up. Then he strains extra hard, and then with this glorious shot does more fart, which is... expect that from like an Adam Sandler movie. And sure, like, play with that tone, have like a serious action scene and then have a gag. Like, I've often talked about how much I love Kung Fu Panda. I feel like it would do it quite well. And that's right, yeah, then it develops into like this pinball gag, which was quite weird. So I felt like you were onto something there, and just throwing in these dumb gags was such a coin toss as to whether or not it would work for me. But then it shifts more into this huge action set piece, which was pretty interesting, pretty good. I don't know, this was decent. Probably better than I was expecting. I'm probably feeling about like a low 3-star for this. It was okay, maybe I'd like it more if I had the original dialogue. Maybe I'll add it to the log right now. Yeah, I'll give that 3-star. Quite curious about what the second one is like. I'll watch that in the next couple of days and report back. What I'm hoping from it is an improvement in that animation. I mean, it's a 6-year gap, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, much bigger budget. Oh my god, that guy's just crazy. Yeah, much bigger. I hope there's more dragon stuff. I hope there's more complexity to that plot, better character dynamics. It's quite long. 2 hours 23 does seem quite long. It is a 12A compared to the PG, so hopefully it gets a bit more real. Let me just check on this director. I don't recognize anything he's done. So yeah, I guess for a first animated feature, that's pretty impressive stuff. Not mind-blowing, not reinventing anything, but just pretty good. I'd recommend it to a certain type of person. It wouldn't be for everybody. Double check my notes, see if there's anything else I noted down. Didn't need a Terminator reference. Didn't need the pinball or fart stuff. Or the like booze and puking and gross out lowbrow stuff. I don't know, I feel like I'm pickier than the average person. I feel like a lot of people would enjoy this. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen this, if you're curious about this, or if you're especially curious about this sequel that I guess everyone in China has seen. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye!